Hey, my name's Jake. I'm the pastor at Epic Roxborough, and got a question for you. Have you ever noticed that life is full of struggles between ought and want? If you think about it, in your life every day, you make decisions between what you ought to do and what you want to do. In fact, my day-to-day started with such a battle, and so it happened when my alarm went off. So last night, with careful calculation, I determined what time I should get up in order to get everything done that I need to get done to be here in Parkside to share with all of you guys. And so I knew when my alarm went off this morning that I ought to get up. However, that was not what my body wanted to do. My body said, "Oh, I've got an idea. Well, why don't we just turn the alarm off and pretend this never happened?" And so my mind said, no, that's not an option. And so my body tried to compromise. They said, why don't we just hit snooze and we'll talk about this in 7 minutes? However, I've been through this before. I'm on to him. And so I said, no, we're getting up. So ought won out, and I got up when my alarm went off. However, on my way from our Roxborough location to our Parkside location, I wanted to go 70 miles per hour. However, the posted sign said that I may not go a lot faster than 55 miles per hour. And in this case, I compromised. I went 61, which to my credit is closer to ought than want, which should count for something, I think. At least I tell myself it should. Everyone who is trying a new exercise routine or a new dietary plan knows that every day you choose between ought and want. And every person who's ever binge watched on Netflix or Hulu and comes to bedtime knows they have to make a decision between, say it with me, ought and want. Yes, correct. The dynamic is just part of life, and it starts early on. So newborn babies don't have this because all they have is want, right? Like they want something and they grab it. You know, they are hungry, they cry. They want to be held, they cry. They're tired, they cry. And we don't fault them for it because they have no idea about ought. They only know want. But once they become toddlers, we start to set some parameters for them. And this is why parents have termed the usage of terrible twos, right? Because no one likes ought, we only like want. And so when little Jimmy is there playing with two cars and he's having fun, and then Tommy's mom comes over and sets Tommy down to play, like Jimmy doesn't want to share his toys, right? Because this is much more fun. Two toys is more fun than one toy. So why should I share? This doesn't make sense to me. And at this point, the lifelong struggle begins of ought versus want. So part of the maturing process is to realize that the oughts the society puts on us are what enable us to get along and have fun together and enjoy each other and not be frustrated all the time with each other. And I found that the happiest and most fulfilled people in the world are those who want to do what they ought to do. And I bet you've seen this too. The happiest and most fulfilled people are those who want to do what they ought to do. And you know who they are because they're the people who enjoy doing their exercise regimen, whatever it is. And so maybe they like to run, and so they go on vacation, and they get up at 5 in the morning to run 10 miles. Not because they have to, because they want to. And those people might make you mad, but the reality is that in that area of their life, they're probably the most happy and the most fulfilled. Or the people who are glad to give a percentage of their income to God every time they're paid. And so those people in that area of their life and their finances probably have the most peace and are the most content. Or students, you know that the people who want to study are usually the most happy and content and satisfied, at least when they get their grades back. Maybe not when they're out the night before, but when they finally get their grades back, they're the most happy and fulfilled. Well, today, as we continue our This Is Love message series, we're going to talk about serving and how the people who want to serve are the happiest and most filled people. Now, Jesus was the ultimate authority on this topic, and he made the greatest sacrifice that the world has ever known. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But first, we can kind of acknowledge that this idea that serving is central to life and that it is important and fulfilling, it came even before Jesus. So several hundred years before Jesus was even born, the Greek philosopher Aristotle said this. He said, "What is the essence of life? to serve others and do good. So thinking people for a long time have realized that although it's counterintuitive, that we should focus on others and so we should do good to others. That said, we all know that it's a struggle, that just because we ought to do it doesn't mean that we want to do it. That's because by nature, we're selfish, right? We're proud, and that makes it difficult. And it's always been that way, even for Jesus' 12 closest followers, who called them Jesus' disciples. And so a guy named Mark, who was very close to them, he documented a story that happened. And we're going to read through that. And as we do, sometimes Scripture, it's hard to get it the first time around. So we're going to read through it kind of verse by verse and give a little commentary so we can fully appreciate what happened in this dynamic between Jesus and his disciples. So let's start reading Mark chapter 10. Again, he, Jesus, took the 12 disciples, they call the 12 here, aside and told them what was going to happen to him. We're going up to Jerusalem, he said, and the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death and will hand him over to the Gentiles, who will mock him and spit on him, flog him, and kill him. 3 days later, he will rise. So this is heavy stuff. And at this point in Jesus' life, he knows that his time is short, and so he's speaking very directly to his disciples. And you can imagine that this would be a sober time, kind of a sad time, not just for the disciples, but for Jesus, right? Because Jesus was fully God and also fully man, so it would be an emotional moment for him to think about what he was going to go through. I don't know anybody who looks forward to that, like being beaten and crucified. Like no one looks forward to that. And so let's see what his 12 closest friends have to say to him in this moment of kind of reflection. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. "Teacher," they said, "we want you to do for us whatever we ask." Like what? Like who does that, right? Like set aside the fact that this is like a difficult, hard moment for Jesus. Set that aside for a second. Who walks into their boss's office and says, "Hey, listen, I need you to do for me whatever I want you to do for me," right? They'd be like, "You get out of here. Who do you think you are?" And then it's so much worse when it's the Son of God that they're saying that to. So here's Jesus' response. "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked. And I bet that he probably knew what they were going to say, but he just wanted to hear them say it. He's like, "Let me just hear you say it here." They replied, "Let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in glory." In other words, let us be recognized for eternity as the two most important people who ever lived. That's all. So apparently, the only takeaway from this sober moment that they had with Jesus was that this is an incredible opportunity for me. It's all about me. And as shocking and as selfish as that may sound to us, we need to be careful not to judge them too quickly, because I think that we all struggle with this idea that the world revolves around me. For example, whenever you're sitting on the highway stuck in traffic and you see an ambulance kind of like snaking its way along the shoulder of the road to get up to an accident, like what's your first thought? Like, is your first thought like, "Man, I hope those people are okay"? If you're a follower of Jesus, maybe, "Hey, we should pray for them"? Like honestly, oftentimes my first thought is this going to make me late? And if so, what are going to be the consequences for me? So we probably all would like to think that if we're in this situation, we put our arm around Jesus and we say, "Hey, Jesus, like I know this is going to be hard, but we're with you, we're for you, man. It's going to be so worth it. Thanks for doing this." I would like to think that that's what I would do, but I can't say with certainty that I would. So here's Jesus' answer. "You don't know what you are asking," Jesus asked. And that's a polite way of saying you are out of your minds, right? Right? What you are out of your minds. Keep reading. "Can you drink the cup I drink, or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with?" And so Jesus says, "So is that what you want? You want to receive the reward for what I'm about to go through. And so you can drink the drink of suffering that I'm about to drink, and you can walk through the waters of tribulation that I'm about to walk through. So you can do that. They replied, we can, right? Yeah, sure. Like, be beaten, take on the weight and the punishment for the sins of the whole world shouldn't be a problem. And then they're like, so which one of us will be on your right and which one will be on your left? Because this is kind of my good side, and I have some thoughts on that. Keep reading. Jesus said to them, you will drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit at my right or at my left, it's not for me to grant. Jesus tells them, like, yeah, you are going to suffer for me, but that doesn't give you dibs on the best places in heaven. We already have a plan in place for that. Okay, you can chill on that. So, as a side note, James was killed by the sword for his faith. And then John is known as the only of the disciples, absent Judas, who wasn't killed for his faith. But it wasn't for lack of trying. It's said that one of the Roman emperors took John and put him in a pot of boiling oil. Sounds like not a good place to be. But ends up that he just kept preaching from the pot of oil. Like, I don't know how you're not converted at that point, right? Sign me up. I want what that guy has. And then later on, it's said that John was poisoned, but it didn't affect him at all. And so it ends up, after a while, they're like, I don't think we're going to kill this guy. And so they sent him off to a desolate, barren island, so at least they didn't have to listen to him talk about Jesus anymore. And as it ends up, the island of Patmos, that's where John wrote the book of Revelation, which is the last book in our Bible. So, as Jesus said, James and John both ended up suffering for their faith. Well, their little backdoor maneuver to get some props in heaven didn't go unnoticed by the other disciples, so let's keep reading. When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. They were like, hey, like, we're in this thing together. What makes you think that you can go off and get some special treatment with Jesus? Like, we're all on the same level here, so what are you doing? And I think that's so much like us, isn't it? If you think about it, something rises up inside of you when your coworker or a fellow student, a classmate, when you work on a project together and they get kind of some acclaim or some props for what they do, and then you don't get it, and you're like, that's not fair. Or when you go into work early or you stay late, you're like, you come in early, like make a noise, you're like, make sure he knows I'm here. You leave a note on his day, or you send an email like at 7:47, you're like, he'll know I was here, right? There's just something about us, inside of us, that we want to be recognized, we want to be acknowledged, we want the credit. You guys watch The Office? The TV show? Yes, we got some vigorous Office watchers here in Parkside, and I'm sure at the other locations too. So Michael Scott, like, he helps us put it in perspective, and he kind of shares what we're thinking a lot of the time. So check this out.
Do I need to be liked? Absolutely not. I like to be liked. I enjoy being liked. I have to be liked. But it's not like this compulsive need to be liked, like my need to be praised.
I don't think we like to admit it, but I think there's a little bit of Michael Scott inside of all of us, to be sure. And at this point, Jesus sees that things are getting a little bit rowdy, so he decides before they get out of hand, he's going to gather his disciples together and talk with them all. And it's at this point that he shares with them something that will rock their world, that will change them forever. Let's read. Jesus called them together and said, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles, they lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man, that's Jesus, did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus says, you know how it is with everybody in the world. Like, if you have power, if you have authority, if you have influence, well, then you're going to throw your weight around. Like, you're going to make it be known. And in the world at that time, that's the way things were. So one nation would overtake another nation, and then they would enslave the people that they took over. And so might makes right in those days. And you got to look out for yourself, because if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you. And then Jesus looks at his disciples and he says, hey, look, those rules don't apply to you. He says, with you, it's totally different. He says, if you want to be great, if you want to be important, if you want to have the most valuable, acclaimed place in heaven, well, then you need to serve everybody. You need to make yourself low. He said, even me, I'm the greatest one that ever lived. I'm the Son of God. And I'm going to make the greatest sacrifice the world has ever known. And you can picture the disciples. They're standing in a circle. And they kind of stop. The words sink in. James and John, they're like looking down. They're like, oh gosh, don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact. But at this moment, no one's saying, I told you so. They're just trying to figure out and make sense of it all. You see, for 3 years, Jesus had done miracles and had taught, and he proved that he was the Son of God. Surely he came so that he could flip the script and that he could throw off the Romans' oppression of them. And maybe they would rule the Romans. Maybe they would push them around. I mean, surely that had to be what he was doing. He would flex his muscle. But it didn't seem like it. It didn't sound like it. And it didn't make sense. It couldn't make sense to them because it was so foreign to them, this idea that the greatest person would be the one that serves. So they left there. They didn't totally understand. And then just a few days later, the Roman guards came and they took Jesus. And when they did, the disciples fled. And they watched from afar as Jesus was beaten and spit upon and mocked and crucified. And then he died. They thought, well, it's done. It didn't work. Evil won out. But then 3 days later, some women ran to Peter and John and they said, hey, they said, the tomb's empty. The tomb they put Jesus in is empty. And so John, in his account of it, he says, me and Peter, we ran to the tomb. He said, but I ran out ahead because I wanted to see so badly. And I got to the tomb, I looked in, and Jesus wasn't in there anymore. And Scripture tells us that when he looked in there, that John believed. And then over the next 40 days, he appeared to the disciples numerous times and to other people because he wanted everybody to know. He wanted the whole world to know that he wasn't dead anymore, that he was alive. And then the disciples, they started poring over scriptures and they realized that Jesus' death and his resurrection was actually the fulfillment of many, many Old Testament prophecies. The pieces started fitting together for them. That the Son of God really did come to earth to be the greatest servant of all, to die and to pay the penalty for all of our sins. He who was the greatest came and served us. And as strange as it sounded at first when they heard it, they're like, oh, I get it. I get it. If I'm going to be great, I've got to serve. So John, he understood that, and when he was an old man, after he'd lived life for a long time, he decided that he would write down this lesson that he learned. And it was a very different man than the man who tried to backdoor his way with Jesus to kind of get some perks in heaven. He changed his perspective, and he wrote this. He said, this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. See, everything changed for John. It was simple. Because he had seen what real love is. He was there at the cross and he saw Jesus die. And so he knew what it was to be great. It was to serve. Now that he knew what that was, his only reasonable response was to live the rest of his life for love for God and serving others. And so that's what he did. Today, in this message series, we're talking about how important it is to serve. The series is called This Is Love. Today is called Serve. And I'm sure that many of us here have heard before, like, hey, you should serve. You grow up, let's go, you should serve. And you hear it all the time. It's kind of celebrating everything. But the reality is just because we ought to do it doesn't mean that we want to do it. Right? Sometimes it's like, Oh man, I got that. They hand out that sheet again at church, all these projects, and then the location pastor's get up and talk about it. They got to kind of not make eye contact. They got to kind of sneak out and have plans. Maybe I should schedule vacation next week, right? Like it's the back of our minds. It's not that we're bad people, right? We're not bad people. We're good people. This is the issue, though. I got my own things going on. I got my own agenda. I got my own aspirations. I got my own busy schedule, right? It's hard. It's hard to make time to serve when I'm trying to do my thing. It's not easy. It's a lot to ask. But yet, Jesus' words, they loom large, right? If you really want to be great, you've got to serve. You've got to become low. And he didn't just say it, he lived it out. He proved it. So how do we change it? How do we change this idea of serving others and acting like they're better than ourselves? How do we change it from being ought to want? It's the same process for anything else that you change from ought to want. It's a 3-step process. Step 1, someone you knew. Step 2, you try it too. Step 3, find that it's true. Been reading Dr. Seuss lately. Someone you knew, you try it too, find that it's true. It's just like me and mushrooms. So, growing up, hated mushrooms. They look gross. Someone told me they're grown in poo. I was like, I don't want anything to do with mushrooms. When someone would give me a dish with mushrooms, I would pick them out if I could. I sometimes sneak them into my napkin. It's like, no mushrooms, please, no mushrooms. Then I met my wife, Allison. Allison loves mushrooms. At first, I was like, I don't know if this thing's going to work out. Like, she's great, but this might be a fatal flaw. But after a while, I watched her. She ate mushrooms, and she's like, oh, these are really good. So I thought, all right, I don't know. Maybe they're not so bad. That was step 1, someone I knew. Step 2, tried it too. I ordered some mushrooms with my food at a restaurant. I tried them. Pretty good. Not bad. First time I tried them, I was like, okay, we can work this, some heavy sauce. And then I ate them a little bit more. I'm like, these are good. Now I'll pay money to put them on my burger. I think they're great. They're good. So I found that it's true. It works for mushrooms. So maybe you don't like mushrooms, but you get the idea. You know somebody, or you are somebody who didn't want to run, didn't want to eat right, didn't want to get up early, and eventually you tried it, and now you're like, I like it. It's good. I'm happy and fulfilled. So if serving isn't your priority right now, but you hear Jesus' words and you're like, man, I want to be great. Like, I want to know what that is. Like, I don't want to just live for myself. Like, but I feel like, I don't know, like I should do it, but I want to help you out today. I'm going to help you through this 3-step process. So step 1 is going to be here right now in this moment. Step 2 and 3 is going to be over the next few days. All right, so step 1, someone you knew. I'm going to introduce you to some people who love to serve, who live to serve, who have found their purpose in serving. So we already talked about our friend Aristotle, who said that the meaning of life is to do good and to serve others. And we talked about Jesus, who said that to be great, you need to serve. And then his disciples and the Apostle Paul, they're all great references that, hey man, this is a thing. This is the joy of their life. But they aren't the only ones. For years and years, since Jesus said these words, people have been inspired and have chosen to live their life according to these words. 100 years ago, Amy Carmichael served in India as a missionary for 55 years without furlough, without any break, even though she suffered from a painful nerve disease, which would sometimes keep her in bed for weeks. And her work was primarily with young girls and young women, many of whom she helped to be freed from forced prostitution. And this is what Amy Carmichael said. She said, you can always give without loving, but you can never love without giving. You can always give without loving, but you can never love without giving. And by giving, she didn't mean money because she didn't have much of that. What she meant was giving of yourself. I love this quote because, first of all, she didn't just say it, she did it. But second of all, it summarizes what we're talking about in this series. This is love. Love isn't just talking about it or, a statue. Love is going out and doing it. And this week we're talking about love is serving. Johnny Erickson Tada, she created an organization to help people with special needs. She wanted to advance and to kind of accelerate the Christian ministry among people with special needs. And so she gives away over 10,000 wheelchairs to people in need every year. And she's written something like 48 books. She's received numerous awards for her good works, and she's a quadriplegic, which means she's paralyzed from her shoulders down. And this is what she had to say about serving. However tiring our work may be, how could it ever be tiresome? How could it be anything less than a joy to serve the one who has given us all things for life and enrichment and enjoyment? Jesus, who suffered so much to secure our salvation. You know, I could spend all day telling you about people who have heard Jesus' words and put them into practice, and you can read books about them, and you know they're all throughout the Bible and other literature. But the reality is that you are sitting among people who have this perspective. At all of our locations, you're sitting with people. And I remember the first time that I thanked somebody for serving. I said, hey, thanks so much for coming in early and for setting up the church. You know, change it from a school into a church so we can help people grow with Jesus. Or thanks so much for being in the lobby and welcoming people and creating that type of environment. It's so important for all of our guests, especially for our first-time guests. Like, it's a big deal. Or thanks so much for investing in our kids and letting them know that Jesus loves them and teaching them about Jesus on their level. Like, thanks so much for doing that. And the response back to me was, thank you. I was like, I don't know what to say. No, thank you, right? Like, what do you do? And it didn't make sense to me. Like, why would someone thank me for the opportunity to get up earlier and take maybe their only day off and come in and serve for an hour and a half? Like, it didn't make sense. Why were they thanking me? Until I began to think about it through the lens of my own experience. And so for many years, I worked as an engineer full-time, a job that I loved, I enjoyed, but the highlight of my week was when I got to go to church and to serve. And I loved the idea that I could use my time and my energy and my talents to help other people grow with God. And so it was such a important thing for me that I didn't want to do anything else on my Sunday. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be at church as long as I could to serve. And even whenever I had my own difficulties and kind of struggles in life, I would go to serve, and it would kind of help me refocus and not look at that, but think about the most important thing that I could do, and that's help people know about a God that loves them. And just as a little side note, there are studies that indicate that serving may help with chronic pain and with blood pressure, and it can help you to live longer, which doesn't surprise me because it makes sense that doing what God tells us to do will be good for us. So then there were the service projects, and the very first service project that we did was we went to a home for people who had been displaced from their home, and they were living in this kind of temporary facility there, and so they were kind of down on their luck in a difficult place. And so we went there and we did a barbecue and we played games with the kids. There's secret video of Pastor Kent in a potato sack kind of hopping along, which if you paid some people that might get leaked, I don't know. No, it's great stuff. But we did that because it was all hands on deck. Like, everybody said, we want this church to be great. So a month after we opened maybe, we went out and we served. And every time that I think about that, I realize that was the time when serving went from ought to want for me. Like, from that point on, after I experienced that, I was like, oh man, like, when can I serve again? And now every time that we throw Philadelphia's largest egg hunt in Gorgas Park, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families come, and you get to watch them come in there and not just get candy-filled eggs, but get their face painted and balloon animals and a petting zoo and all sorts of stuff. Like, I get to see that happen, and I know that they come from homes where they're probably fought on the way there, and they're probably figuring out what to do with their kids are fighting, but for a couple hours, they get to come to a place where they get to throw all that stuff off and just have fun and be amazed and have awe and realize that a church did that for them. Or every time that we do our Night to Shine prom event for people with special needs, and we get to provide an incredible prom for many people who probably never had that, never had a hope of having that. And then also to take their caregivers to a separate place and let them get massages and have door prizes and serve them food and treat them like the heroes that they are. Like every time that I do that and I watch that, I realize that there's nothing like serving. There's nothing like it in the world. There's nothing as fulfilling. There's nothing that makes you so complete. I'd almost say that it's addictive. It's so good. So now you know. Now you know some people who love to serve and who would do anything to be able to serve, and who say, man, it's such a privilege to serve. And you're sitting with them at all of your locations, here at Parkside, in Roxborough, in Fairmount, in Center City. You're sitting around people who know what it is to be great in God's eyes. All right, so now you know. That's step one. Step two, you try it too. You try it too. This step I can't do for you, but I can help. On your way in, you got one of these guys. And this is a list of all the service projects, these community outreach projects that are going to be going on over this next week. And many of you have already signed up, and some of the projects that were available aren't on here anymore because they're either going on right now or they're already full. But these ones here are still available. And the ones with the asterisks by them, those are kid-friendly. So you can bring your kids along, you can invest in them and help them to realize at an early age how they can be great. Some great ones on here. So Tuesday and Thursday will be the Share Food program. And so there is, that's a huge facility where they pack food boxes for people who wouldn't have food if they didn't get it from there. And so a lot of people in need, you can go and you can pack food for people who are in Philadelphia, your neighbors. You can go do that for them. And you can bring your kids along too. And also, as you probably know, that 3 of our 4 locations meet in schools. And so we said, hey, we're going to partner with schools. Many of you know firsthand that being a teacher and investing in kids every day is tiring and hard. And so then we want to come alongside them. We're going to serve. What a better way to be for Philly than to help out schools, right? And so we're going to do that right now. At Roxborough, we are gearing up for a project that's going on today. You can't sign up for it. It's already full. If you're at Roxborough, you might be able to wander around and find it. You don't mind getting paint on your clothes. But we're going to be redoing a room that's used for kids who need clothes, and they hang clothes up in here, and they have shelves. And we're going to redo the whole room for them and serve them that way. Here at Parkside, which is the School of the Future, you can see those projects on here. We'll be serving at Parkside. In Fairmount, at Franklin Learning Center, we're going to be doing projects there. And so we want to partner with schools. Those are great opportunities to really be a blessing to some really special people who serve our kids. Also, there's some other ones I kind of want to highlight for you. There's a barbecue for displaced families. That's the one I talked about before. We did 10 years ago. We're still doing that. Red Shield residents. And also, we're doing a barbecue for veterans at the Veterans Group, which is a place where veterans can go and have food and shelter and be prepared to have a successful life in civilian society. And so one more I can't help highlighting, there's so many good ones, is the Blossom Bowling. And so this Saturday morning, we get to help some people with all sorts of disabilities be able to go bowling. And they need some assistance with that. And I just love the fact that we can help them do something they probably thought I could never do. But we get to go and serve them and help them to do that. So, after you have served in one or more of these projects, I think you'll be at step number 3. You'll find that it's true. You'll find that's true. You'll serve and you'll go home that night knowing that you did something truly great. And that's something that's pretty special. And listen, if you go and you serve and ends up like, you're like, I didn't like it that much. It was, it wasn't quite my thing. Like, don't give up on it, okay? It's okay sometimes. The project manager, I think they're all going to go great. But I don't want you to give up if it doesn't go well. Just try it again. And once you do, you'll discover the joy and satisfaction of serving. So this week, man, we want everybody in our church, everybody to go out and serve in a service project. But here's the thing. Like, this isn't a once and done thing. This isn't like, oh, for a week we're going to talk about serving and we're going to get all this hoopla about serving and then we're going to move on to the next thing and just stop it. Like, this is something that needs to become part of our life, part of our DNA. I mean, I really believe that once every person in our church begins to love serving, and it's going to change everything. It's going to change everything. Man, all of our service projects that we do them all the time, not just on this week, Serve Week. But we're always doing service. I believe that all of them will be packed up. People will be like, man, I can't wait to get out there and serve. And every one of our volunteer teams on Sunday mornings is going to be full. It's going to be like a waiting list. Because people are like, man, I can't wait to be a part of this. I don't know if you know this, but we do a service project, a community outreach project every Sunday morning at 4 locations in our city. We call it church, right? And that's like the best service project we can do because we have something that every person in our city needs. So listen, I'm just going to go on a side note here. If you're here and you're like, I don't serve because it doesn't seem like greeting, like how important is that? Or like setting stuff up, like I'm important. I don't do that stuff. Like I have better things to do with my time. Or listen, it is so important. We have guests that don't come back because people didn't say hi to them on the way in or they couldn't find like where to go, right? Or we have guests that come back because they said people were so nice. Like, I'm not sure I believe what you say about Jesus, but people are so nice, I want to come back. Or there's times when our setup teams are short and things aren't set up right, and then the morning goes awry, right? Or the production team, there's enough people in the production team, so they're like scrambling around trying to do this stuff. And some people are just sitting there like, well, like I don't want to do that. It doesn't sound like it's that great. And what we do is too important. It's too important not to find your place and serve every week. So I believe that our church, Epic Church, will achieve its full potential when every one of us learns to love, to serve. Because life is full of battles between what we want to do, what we ought to do. The happiest, most fulfilled people you'll ever meet are those who want to do what they ought to do. Man, I want our church to be happy, fulfilled. I want us to love to serve. And when we do, the world will see the love and the light of Jesus. And when we do, God calls us great. Let's pray together. God, we thank you so much for what you have done for us. God, that you came and you served us in the greatest way possible. Lord, you paid the punishment for the things we've done that are wrong. You gave us the opportunity to have forgiveness and a new life in you, peace with you, hope for eternity with you, God. And Father, we thank you for that first and foremost, God. And we pray that for each of us, that you would shape us into the servants that you created us to be. I pray for those here who don't yet have a desire to serve and it's still an ought for them. God, I pray that you would help them to take a step to try it and to find that it's true, Lord, that they would give their lives away. And God, we know it's hard. We know there's an internal struggle. Man, we're worried about ourselves. We're worried about taking care of ourselves, and we don't want to put others first. But God, I pray that we would choose to do it and that we would trust you. That, Lord, when we put you first, we put others first. God, that you provide for our needs. You bless us in so many ways. And you call us great. God, we want that so much. And so, Lord, help us to do that. Help every project that we do over the next week to be just a watershed moment for those who are serving. And also it's just an incredible blessing for those organizations that we're partnering with, God. And Lord, we pray that they would see the light of you through what we do. And God, and because of our service, that they would turn to you and say, there is a God that loves me. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.